Recording.
Hi, my name is Dunn, and I did my research paper on The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. I focused on the suppression that Jane faces and the depression which she endures, and the furthering of her depression from the suppression of her husband. Therefore, I titled my story, Further Depression of the Depressed Woman in the Yellow Wallpaper. I first focus on the Weyer-Mitchell therapy, which is what John incorporates to use to treat Jane. And according to Diana Martin, in The Rest Cure Revisited, the Weyer-Mitchell therapy was mostly prescribed for women and had three main elements. These elements were isolation, rest, and feeding, along with electrotherapy and massage to counteract muscle atrophy. With this said, it is for this reason that Jane states that she does not want to go to Weyer-Mitchell. She is not having to endure the shock therapy. According to Martin, another aspect of the therapy was that family and friends were forbidden. This is why, when Jane wants her family to visit, her husband quickly says no. It's also why she's not allowed to see her child, as it goes against the strict regimen of the therapy. Jane's descent into madness. As Jane notices more and more about the attic room where she resides, it appears that she is going into a madness. She begins to see images in the wallpaper, and she sees women creeping around outside. She notes that the room seems to have been inhabited by toddlers who destroyed lots of things. There were gnaws out of the bed, the wallpaper was ripped, and there were bars on the windows. She assumed that these things were all from toddlers, but we later found out that it was most likely from other women like herself, whose husbands took them to this home so that they could be treated. These observations were not all made at once, but rather as she transcends deeper into her delusions. Jane's further descent. One of the things that was significant is the things Jane begins to notice about the wallpaper and the woman that she sees in it. It's significant because it represents her. After a while of studying the paper and the image, Jane takes note that the woman appears to be behind bars, that she is trapped in the wallpaper. This is reflective of how Jane is trapped by her oppressive husband. He is the all-dominant power whom Jane should not and could not challenge in any way. It is also representative of Jane's entrapment by her disease that she has. She feels trapped in her own body because of the depression and desperately wants to escape the hold that it has on her. On the verge of escape, Jane contemplates jumping out of the window, but she decides against it as the bars are too close together. Also, she says she does not want to creep outside with all of the other women. She doesn't even want to look out the window anymore. These women that are creeping around appear to be representative of other women who had underwent the therapy, and they jump to their deaths to escape. Jane has another plan, though. She has a rope that she has kept hidden in the room. She's going to tear off the wallpaper and catch the woman that's behind it with a rope and keep her tied up and show her husband so that he can see that she wasn't making it all up. Because John believed that if he could not physically see signs of the disease, it did not exist, and that anything Jane said, she was making up. And this is going to be her proof to him that her thoughts and feelings do matter. Jane's escape. The end of the story can be interpreted in many ways. At first glance, when one reads, it seems that she has simply gone completely insane from the isolation that she's been forced to endure. However, after reading the story several times, one will notice that there is a key aspect in the story that takes it to another level. She does escape her captors, and not through insanity. She escapes both the husband and the disease. She uses the rope and hangs herself from the bed. Jane says, "But I am securely fastened now by my well-hidden rope." This is why John becomes so frantic when he enters the room, wondering what she is doing. But then he faints, as she realizes his wife is dead. His cure didn't work. It did work for her, in her mind, because she escaped. But for John, his wife is not cured. She's gone. She then creeps over his body, as this is her new home, along with the other spirits. I've got out at last, in spite of you and Jane. Jane has escaped her husband, and she escaped her own body. She felt that her body was imprisoning her and was the cause of her depression. Jane's spirit is now free, and she is no longer suppressed by the constraints of society. Postpartum depression today. We know that Jane was suffering from what today we term postpartum depression. This causes her to feel detached from her child, which is why, throughout the story, when she does speak of him, she does not mention his name. Mothers with this condition will sometimes feel happy, and other times they feel sad. But they are not in touch with themselves. We see this in the story as Jane does not mention her own name until the end. Opposite of the times past, today, mothers are encouraged to bond with their children, even when they're suffering from depression, postpartum depression, and pregnancy during depression during pregnancy. They also have the availability of counseling and medication therapy if it's needed. This is to help them to conquer the depression and be able to bond with their child and live normal, healthy, happy lives. Thank you for listening to my presentation. If you have any questions, please let me know. And special thanks to my daughter for doing my recording and being my audience.